technology to see how everybody handled it, and we've gone it through with flying colors. So big round of applause for CMI on fixing the issue. And in case you're wondering what happened with the storm last night, there was a storm surge that knocked out the power of the whole convention center last night, and then again early this morning. In fact, if you were here early this morning, you had to leave because all the electricity and power was gone because of a power surge. So that's the issue. They had to actually replace all the lines and everything. So great job, guys. We're back in business. We're going to make it happen. So thanks again. So I was informed that most people could not hear the bios that we read. So we're going to just do a quick lightning round. Each business owner is going to get up, introduce yourself, business, and give we promised a 10-second elevator pitch of the value they bring to the table with their business. So Sarah, would you like to start?
Sarah Compter. I own a company called SYNACT. We specialize in the Microsoft business application stack. And what makes us a little unique is that we're disrupting the traditional service model. So we offer an all-inclusive service and support model instead of charging by the hour. And I think part of what brings me to this panel is that my team is predominantly women in a male-dominated industry.
Hi, good morning. My name is Judy Miller with Miller & Associates. I'm the CEO and co-founder, along with my husband, James. We are an IT services company, so basically we're people. We take people and we match them with the businesses who need that hard-to-find IT talent, either as an individual or a small group or a large group. We are headquartered here in Rochester. We do business across upstate New York, Buffalo, Rochester, Albany, and more recently we've moved out to Colorado, and we also have an international services small team working in Saudi Arabia. And I echo Sarah, and that what brings me here today is I joined this wonderful group of ladies to talk about women in IT and some of the obstacles we face and the promises we have looking to the future. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Yasmin Mattox. I'm the founder of Arkatecht, and we create digital professional advancement tools that, as we say, are tailored to the unique needs and aspirations of working parents. In a sea of working parent solutions, especially in apps, that really cater to the needs of parents more so than the working professional, we've decided to step in to ensure that no matter whether you're in the office or at home, you can accomplish your professional advancement dreams.
Hi everyone, I'm Eva Minkoff, the founder of Wellacopia. We help patients with chronic illnesses find their ideal medical and wellness practitioners. Essentially, we are the Match.com for healthcare.
Hi everyone, I'm Heather Fry. I'm a director of development and continuous delivery performance automation testing at Paychex. You know, Paychex big here in Rochester. I don't think I have to go into what we do, but we are certainly looking at how do we bring women into the leadership positions, how do we get more into this world, and I'm looking forward to the panel with these guys.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll start with the questions, and just raise your hand if you want to go first. All right, you're a good student, we'll see. But the first question is, we'd love to hear about, as a women in technology business owner, or just as a business owner in tech, what are some of the current obstacles that you're facing? I'd like to answer that first.
I'll take that one first. So it's interesting, we're here to talk about technology and all the cool new things and how fast it's moving. The obstacle, though, that I've faced multiple times is more about the people and the culture. So technology isn't the problem. We just heard that less than 15 minutes ago. It's how do I move the technology, how do I get it into a space that's new and exciting, and get the people to make the change. I've tried several approaches. Some have failed. The most recent one that I think has worked very well for me is it's not about dictating, it's not about bringing in the technology and just saying go. It's about finding the disruptors in your organization that will help grasp that technology and help push it through the organization. You know, get those people that understand it, that buy into it, that can support you. Grassroots. It's not about top-down, it's about grassroots. And the more that you can prove that it helps you and where we want to go, and talk more about how it's going to help, not just that it will help, really gets people on board, and all of a sudden you have a pull, not a push. So that's one of the biggest obstacles I found, and one of the best ways I found to get around it, and it's working well right now in our place, especially around continuous delivery. It's a very new concept, it's a very large concept. Break it down, get the people that want to help, and all of a sudden I have pulls, not pushes.
Okay, mine works. I'd like to take just a minute and speak to the entrepreneurs in the room about obstacles that women have faced. And I think in order to look into the future, we have to look at the past and see how far we've come. It was really informative for me to learn that just 30 years ago, the Women Business Enterprise Act came into law. And what was important about that particular act is that prior to 1988, a woman was not allowed to go into the bank and get a business loan. So if she wasn't married, and if by chance her father had passed and she doesn't have a son, the person who came forward in this piece of legislation that they used as an example of how outdated this practice or societal norm was, is that this woman had to have her 17-year-old son come in and co-sign for a loan to own her own business. This is 1988. That's 30 years ago, and I know I'm dating myself, but most everyone here in the room can remember 30 years ago. Ronald Reagan was president, Berlin Wall went down, Madonna, it wasn't that long ago. So I think it's important to understand that, to know where are we today. When I went into the bank, it was a little bit different because we were founded in 2010, and that was after the financial crisis. But we still had some significant hurdles. It's important to know also little things, societal norms we take for granted. Did you know that when you complete your tax return, for example, I had been working with my CPA firm for a very long time, and my husband's name automatically went back on the top of the tax return. Well, that makes him the primary taxpayer. So when I went before the Women Business Enterprise National Council as a women-owned business, one of the things they wanted was our taxes. I'm seeing some nods from my peers. Well, what do you mean your name isn't first? Well, they know I own the business, but they put my husband's name first. So, you know, and I'm guilty of this too, I'll tell you. Looking at our consultant list and the managers that we report to, I've worked in IT for 20, 30 years. Our list of managers that our consultants report to, I looked down the whole list, and I saw a name, Tracy. I automatically made the assumption that was a man. I'm embarrassed to admit that, but that's the honest truth. And when I met her, I was like, oh, you're Tracy. So the reality is the obstacles that we faced and where we are today, we've come a long way. I think there's a long way to go, but I'm proud of what we've accomplished so far.
And I want to note again, you know, the microphone was off when I talked about it before, that this panel is actually not called Women in Technology, right? You just happen to be, you know, business owners who happen to be women who own a technology business. So, you know, 30 years ago, it probably would have been titled something a little bit differently, right? So, anyone else? Eva?
So yeah, I don't want to make this about women. I guess let's just talk about identity and impostor syndrome. So I suffer from impostor syndrome in tech. I can't believe I'm talking at a tech conference, to be totally honest. All my pursuits academically and career-wise were about being a clinician or a scientist, and I created a platform that helps people in terms of their healthcare, but it wasn't until I went to a networking event networking event that someone had to categorize me, and they said, well, what sector are you in? I said, healthcare, and they gave me a badge that said health tech. And I was like, well, I guess I work in tech, I do have a platform, but I had such an issue identifying as someone who worked in technology because frankly, as a woman who wasn't a developer or someone who pursued a career in technology, I felt very odd about identifying that way. And I think in general, people, when it wasn't necessarily what they were aiming to do, is be someone in technology, it's also a weird identity for them to take on.
Anyone else?
Next question. In our ever-changing and ever-advancing world, how do you stay relevant in the industry?
So I was actually just saying this to a couple of ladies a few minutes ago. I think that the pace with which technology is changing these days makes it nearly impossible to be an expert in all of it. I think if we think back even 10, 15 years ago, you could call yourself generically an IT company, right? An IT service provider, something along those lines, and you could, convince someone that you could do it all, and you could hire the right people to do it all. And one of the things that I'm learning now, again, I specialize in the Microsoft business application stack, is that even inside that specific ecosystem, we can't be experts in it all, because it's exploding in terms of what the capabilities are. And so staying relevant is really about the relationships that you're developing, like many of us are today, with your potential partners, right? We need to learn how to rely on each other and partner, and sometimes that means figuring out some kind of creative solution, because in some ways you might be competitors as well, right? How do we partner together to make sure that we can give the Rochester community the kind of IT support and service and expertise and innovation that it deserves? I know I can't be an expert in it all, so I have to rely on my partners and other IT services firms to support me. And I think that's a big piece of it, is recognizing that we can't do it all.
I completely agree, and I think speaking to you really can't be a specialist in everything. I think IT leaders, people in tech, need to be very, very clear that tech can do a lot, but there's also a hell of a lot it cannot do. And so I would say, think back to the Renaissance. Think back to Da Vinci. Increasingly, leaders in this space need to have a very global understanding of what trends exist, not so much within tech, but outside of it, to see where the interdisciplinary relationships are so that they can actually be activated upon. I think the biggest issue that I've seen has been that people have been so driven to become technically proficient that they have absolutely lost the ability to be critical thinkers. You would think the two would go hand in hand, but you often find that increasingly they're mutually exclusive. Is that a product of our education? Is that a product of the fact that people don't get their hands dirty anymore by opening up a daily or a Sunday paper? I don't know. But I would say more than anything else, at least in my opinion, people have to read. People have to know the humanities, they have to know history, they have to know that the technology that they create has very real social implications, and that technology can be a source for great good, but to really lead, you have to understand and anticipate what can go wrong as well.
So I really like that we're all on a very similar page here. And I'd actually like to use the analogy of fashion. So in fashion, you have core pieces, things that don't go out of style, and then you have trendy pieces. So I think it's important to apply both. But at the core of your business and your culture and your product, you should have those things that never go out of style. So for Wellacopia, for instance, our thing that doesn't go out of style is relationships. Human relationships happens to be in healthcare. And our trendy item is that we use matchmaking and soon AI, machine learning. So I think that in order to stay relevant, you want at the core of what you do to be something that will always be true. Technology is going to change, but human needs and desires are always going to be the same.
What else?
I'd like to add to what Yasmin was saying. I really think, irrespective of the industry, in order to stay relevant, we have to all embrace the idea, age-old idea, of a learning organization. Peter Senge, Fifth Discipline, constantly have a quest for learning more. And, you know, we're bombarded with messages from everywhere, so that becomes challenging. But you almost have to make it a task in your week or in your day to devote, to spend more time learning. And I think that that's the most relevant thing that we all could be doing, irregardless of what industry you're in.
One thing I will add too is the one thing that I've learned as a leader is, as much as I have to stay relevant at certain levels, I need to surround myself with the people that have all of the detail. I am not a detailed person. The more I've grown in my career, the less detailed I've become, which has hurt me. However, I've also learned that there are people that do understand the detail, whether it be a specific technology or even a different type of learning. And I have to be open to how they learn. I have to be open to how they're bringing things to me. And that's how I stay relevant, is listening and being open to what's out there and all the new technologies that are coming. And just because we use one and it's great, doesn't necessarily mean we shouldn't be looking and being open to all the other things. So kind of stay relevant in your world, but you don't necessarily have to go all the way down to ground zero.
Great. So we have a last question. What do you think is needed today to stay cutting edge, innovative, as an IT leader in today's business world?
So I think there's a couple things. I think naturally people don't like change. So we got to battle that. We have to be disruptors. We have to not be afraid to fail. That's probably the biggest one. I guarantee you, if I had to ask for a show of hands, there's a lot of perfectionists in this room. You want to do it right. You want to do it right the first time. You want to be the fastest and the coolest. But the only way you're going to get there is if you fail. Now, you got to fail fast. You got to learn from that quickly. But the only way you can innovate is figure out what doesn't work sometimes, not just what does. So I encourage people to challenge the norm, especially in a corporate environment, though. When you do that challenge, it has to be with reason. It has to be with, again, support from your peers. But challenge it. Don't just do what you always do. That doesn't mean go jump after every shiny object either. But if you don't start challenging, you cannot be innovative. And if you don't fail, you're not going to learn from those failures to try the next thing. So it's okay to fail. Just do it quickly, learn from it, and you'd be amazed at how many innovative things can come out of one simple failure.
I don't know how innovative it is, but I think it's important to talk about mentorship while we have a voice to do that, especially for women in tech or anyone in this room. With devices and all of Slack and all the means we have to collaborate digitally, we really need to go back to the beginning and let's connect. Let's meet. I think developing those mentor relationships is a significant opportunity to advance yourself forward. And that takes time. You have to get out from behind the desk, get out into the room, and like this is a great place. So happy that we're doing this here today. Make those connections with people, and then also be that person for someone else. Know how to lead and support one another and celebrate each other and inspire and innovate. Spending time on that brings out the best in people. Maybe that's what spurs innovation. I think I would also like to mention, you know, as a women panel, there's been a lot in the Me Too movement that I think prohibits women from making the male connections that we were once able to do. Like I said, I've spent 25, 30 years in this industry, and it's fair to say that I would not have had the male mentors that I had right now, for example, because a recent study from Lean In showed that 60% of men in the working world are afraid to sit down and meet with women for all the sexual harassment issues that we're all looking at right now, that, we're all going through the training, New York State mandated in October. So I wanted to bring that up as well. It's challenging for us now, and we really need to, all of us, step up and not be afraid and do the right thing and make the right connections and be that male mentor or that female mentor and make a difference to somebody else.
Well put, Judy. I guess the other thing I would say about innovation is that in technology, it's almost really natural to think of innovation as part of what we do, but we oftentimes think of it only in terms of the app, of the platform, of the infrastructure, of the software, right? We think of innovation in the thing that we're producing. But there's so much opportunity to innovate in the way we do business, in the way we partner, in the way we work with our customers. And I guess I want to remind us sometimes that just because we're tech companies doesn't mean that you always have to have the innovative product, but you could provide that product in an innovative way. You could engage with your team members in an innovative way. You could throw out the physical office space and really embrace virtual, and that in and of itself is innovative. And it's leveraging innovative technology, but it's also an innovative way of doing business. And there's a lot of pressure on IT companies to be innovative in that product or app space, and I just think there are other ways to show that we're at the head of the class, so to speak.
I would definitely agree with what everybody said. I would also include the fact that, one, with everything else, you have to have empathy. You have to truly want to understand the grievances of people, whether that's your customer or it's somebody else, because invariably, whether it's your customer or not, your customer is impacted in some way, especially in the type of lives we lead today. So one, you have to have empathy. I would also put on my social sciences hat from my educational and professional background and encourage all of you in the space to, as Steve Blank said, literally get out of the building, but become social scientists yourself, become anthropologists, go out, observe people, observe what people in the real world are doing, and I think you'll often find that you're not in a position really to have to get somebody say, hey, let's look into fixing this or building this, but you'll actually see the problem through observation. You'll take on the problem as you see the connections that you have to it. So I'd really encourage people in tech, whether you're a designated leader, whatever that means or not, get out of the building, speak to people. One of the hacks that I've used for years, which actually has been practiced in psychotherapy for years, is to always have a notebook on you. Just a little notebook, a pen, or a pencil, and jot down the things you see, whether it's grievances, whether it's aha moments, and I bet you could translate a lot of that into innovation within your own businesses.
So we're going to take the last 5 minutes for questions. And does anybody have a question? And Anika will come over to you. Anybody have a question for our panel? Show of hands. Yep, right over there. There we go. Give us your name and if you're directing the question towards somebody.
My name is Martin, and it's not really a directed question. I was just curious. The panel mentioned a lot about innovation, and so I was wondering, what do you guys foresee the biggest challenge to innovation in the next couple of years or tomorrow?
Who wants to take that? Sarah?
Yeah,
You need a mic.
Just naturally start to yell. I know for me, in in our business, we're in business-to-business implementations of business software, right? And I think one of the greatest challenges I have is convincing slower to adopt companies that innovations like AI aren't that scary, and they're inherent to everything we're doing already. So how do we embrace those and make them work for some of those companies that have been around for generations here in Rochester, right? Recognizing that the same old, yeah, that's gonna keep working to a certain extent, but how much more could you do if you embraced these innovations? So I think the challenge isn't so much the innovations themselves again, but really getting organizations to take advantage of what's out there.
I absolutely agree with that. More so I want to address that I think in technology, especially when we're going for the masses, we're talking about scalable technology, we tend to avoid things that are messy, like emotions. How people feel about certain things, which is why I'm pretty sure that no one's done matching in healthcare like that. Because we're talking about how people feel about things. And it's scary to people because it seems like it's qualitative, not quantitative. But if we implement things like AI and machine learning, you can take something that seems messy and make it quantifiable, make it addressable in a way that is still scalable.
We have another question.
Hi, my name is Usman, and I'm curious to know if any of you were motivated to invest in a business opportunity because of the sudden growth in technology, or is it more of an interpersonal thing? Are you looking to expand with people or your actual softwares, or what's your intention?
You want to take that?
I guess I'll go off that. So I think this is pretty well known amongst entrepreneurs, but it's generally best if you're driven to build something based on your own problem, something that's a pain point for you, interpersonal. And then if there's technologies out there that allow you, that you can expand on, then that's awesome if it's something you want to take advantage of or make better. But at the end of the day, I think jumping on a new technology just because it's a new technology without it addressing a personal need or even if it's personal within your community, I think that can be a mistake, personally.
Yeah, I definitely was motivated to start Arkatecht because I lived it, because I had grown up a little rambunctious girl in New York City by way of Harlem, thought that I had a career trajectory set, and motherhood happened. And something that shouldn't have upended my career initially was very difficult. And so I was definitely motivated by a personal cause. I would say also I was motivated not to, because you can't, but I was motivated to start something that could have a rippling effect with other startups in the space. So that not so much what's happening now, year 2, year 3, but what's happening 7, 10 years out can have profound positive impacts on society.
Just quickly, my answer isn't as exciting, I think, because the reason we started this business is just life happened. I started it later in life. I think my husband and I are both what you might call risk-averse people, but living in corporate America for all of our career and having been on the other side of wide sweeping layoffs, it faces you to make some decisions. Unemployment, start my own business, and we've never looked back. It's been the greatest thing we've ever done. So I think the message there, not just start your own business, but it's push outside your comfort zone. Do things you think you never would do. If anyone had asked me in my 20s if I'd be sitting here today talking about what I'm talking about, I'd say you're nuts. There's no way. So uniquely though, as I look back at all the different steps I took, each one of them prepared me for where I am today too. So really just pushing outside your comfort zone, whether it's with a new business or in your current position, it's the best that you can do. Go for it. Take that leap. You won't regret it.
I think that's a great way to end the panel. Thank you, Judy. And thank you, everyone. And thank you, Anika, for being a great co-moderator. We're going to stay on schedule here. We got a lot of great things coming up. I'm going to bring back Alex. But a big round of applause for